Freddie W., along with Rocket Jump Film School, published a video a while back talking about lenses and how they relate to video in terms of a $150 lens versus a $15,000 lens, and if there was any difference and who could tell the difference between what. And it was a really interesting video. I watched it, I enjoyed it, but F-Stoppers recently featured this video as well, claiming that you don't really need these high-end lenses because you can't really tell in terms of sharpness and detail, that the resolution just doesn't matter for 1080p video. And I have a few issues with that. The article was short, so obviously I don't know all the intent of the author, but when we're talking about web videos are, it's more and more important that web videos are actually 4K, because people are having bigger displays, whether it's an iMac or some just nice high-end 4K monitor. It's very, very common, very popular now, especially in the PC world. Much more common. You got YouTube, who has implemented 4K streaming, which you can do right now on YouTube. And a lot of my videos I've actually uploaded in 4K because I think it's valuable. If the content is relevant, like this won't be 4K because what does it matter? But for things where you're actually comparing and you want that optimal picture quality, yeah, absolutely upload it in 4K so that people who have those monitors can see it. And the thing that's really important about web viewing and computer viewing is that people are sitting really close to their computer monitors and their displays. So where TV viewing, people are saying that, like, if you watch something on television, 1080 is like the max because normal viewing distance of TVs is so great that you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between 4K and 1080. There's probably some truth to that. You know, a lot of people are sitting fairly far away from their TV. They don't have massive 150-inch TVs. They probably got like a 50-inch TV or whatever it is. But on the web with computers, it's totally different. People are really close to their monitor and they don't want to see pixels. They don't want to see blurry, fuzzy detail. They want to see a nice picture, which 4K is about 8 megapixels, whereas 1080 is like around 2 megapixels if you're just averaging everything. And so that's kind of my first objection, is that yes, at 2 megapixels, you're really not going to see much of a difference in terms of resolution, in terms of detail that's being resolved. But at 4K, you probably will. I mean, I've posted other videos that are comparing lenses, high-end cinema lenses, to photography glass, and you can see a difference in when you're viewing at 4K. You can see the sharpness when you're viewing at 100%. It's absolutely there. So that's strike one. It is important, especially for 4K, especially for the future of content, which is moving towards 4K. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that lenses, it's not just about sharpness or just about resolution and resolving detail. It's about other things, more creative aesthetics like the bokeh or the color and how it renders color and contrast, the lens flares that are produced by that particular lens. Every lens is different. They're all going to look a little bit different from a creative aesthetic, like what's the look you want to get. But even beyond that, on a more practical level, you also have the handling of the lens itself. And what's really nice about cinema lenses, which is why Rokinon, they've kind of announced and released these zine lenses that are quickly becoming pretty popular online. It's like the handling of cinema lenses for video, for filmmaking, is immensely valuable because you have the same size lens with the same front diameter. Everything's the exact same, whether it's a 24 millimeter, 50 millimeter, 85, whatever it is, all the same. So no matter what you're doing, no matter what your rig is, you can swap the lenses one for one and you don't have to change things. The other really nice thing about cinema lenses is that you've got the longer focus throw, so you can actually dial in your focus rather than shooting with a photography lens like I'm doing now, where you move the focus ring just a little bit and your focal plane is a totally different spot. That's really challenging as well. And you've got things like the stepless aperture and just the overall handling and construction. Like, there are benefits to cinema lenses, and I'm not saying that you should go out and buy the $15,000 lens. Obviously not, unless you can afford it. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's a priority. Because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, like, even for photography, right, where you're dealing with really high megapixel, whether it's like 50 megapixels now or like 47, all these really high megapixel counts, and people are talking about getting the best lenses. Are people going to be viewing that image at, 50 megapixels, like this huge, huge image? Or is it going to be on the web where it's shrunk down to 4K, which is what their display is? Or, it's on a poster, but it's like up far away, or like a billboard that's up far away, and people aren't ever going to be able to get closer than like 50 feet from it. Like what's the trade-off there? And what's the benefit of those lenses? And you'll have photographers say, oh, there's absolute benefit. I want the best image possible. So I'm going to buy, the $5,000 lens or the $3,000 lens or the $1,500 lens, whatever it is. Rather, oh, that crappy kit lens. Ugh, I don't want that. Same argument applies to video. It's the exact same thing. You're going to buy and you're going to use what makes sense to you. You can get away with the cheap $100 lenses off eBay. You totally can. You can make stuff. And you know what? 90% of people won't even know. They'll watch your content and judge it for other things like the lighting, the acting, the color, whatever it might be. They're not going to be judging it based on like, oh, he used a cheap lens. I can tell. The other thing I didn't even mention about lenses, it's not even just about like sharpness, but you get some other like chroma, like I have a particular lens where I actually sold it. It was a old Nikon 50 1.4, and wide open, it would just bloom, on the highlights or anything bright. It would just like bloom, and you get that kind of like hazy ghosting. So it's like, I can't ever shoot wide open. Not that you necessarily should shoot wide open, but I definitely couldn't on that because you would notice. The average person would notice. So I sold that lens. But anyway, that's kind of off topic. Anyway, back to my main point was that if you're using cheap lenses or really expensive lenses, you kind of know why you're doing it. Maybe you're really conscious about price, and so you want the absolute cheapest thing because you need money to pay your actors or buy food or get a decent tripod, whatever it might be. But you might also have all those other things and someone else is paying for the production, and so you want the absolute best cinema glass because it's going to make your job a lot easier. That's totally valid too. So I don't think there's a way where you can say that like, oh yeah, the $150 lens is totally the same as a $15,000 lens. There are differences, and once you know them and once you make your own evaluation, I mean, if price is the thing you're worried about, you're probably going to go with the cheapest available. I mean, that just probably makes sense. But if you do have room, if you do have a budget, it's certainly valid to consider the more expensive stuff because it probably will make your life easier and you will be getting the absolute best. And whether, 90% of the people can notice or not, that doesn't matter. If you can notice it and there's, 10% of the audience out there will notice, and maybe the client will notice or your producer will notice, like that matters. And that's where it makes a difference. So I don't think you can say that a $150 lens is the same as a $15,000 lens. Obviously you can't, and I don't know that anyone is necessarily saying that, but even if it's, a visual resolution thing, you can't tell the difference between it because, 1080p is only 2 megapixels. There's so much more beyond that. And whether it makes it to the frame or maybe it's behind the scenes in terms of the handling, the construction and how the lens is built, all that stuff matters. And you as the individual who are making the decision, you'll be able to figure it out, but just don't lean one way or the other based on what someone else says. You make the decision for you, what makes the most sense. And most of the time it's going to come down to the price. And if you can afford it, great. If you can't, you can't. You can make it work. It doesn't mean that the overall quality is going to suffer. Your image quality might suffer a little bit, but you can make it work. And that's all I have to say about that.